This time we're going to look at making buffers based on points. Here we have a layer called TUS data, and this is pretend data that has been collected here. So in other words, it's made up. So this not reflect the TUS data from Alexander. And we're going to buffer because we want to protect the areas around each of the sites. So in order to do that, we have to go and indicate what the different distances are, and we have to go and tell it to do the buffer. So once again, vector geoprocessing tools buffer gives us the information or the screen. TUS data is the layer that we're going to work with. Remember that if you had somebody selected, this may show up. Buffer distance, we'll say it's 500 meters. Remember that the 10 TM or UTM, both of them are in meters, so 500 means 500 meters is the buffer distance that we're going to have here. And then we indicate the name of the file that we're going to create. Let's do that. Buffer TUS and save. Okay, see how quickly that runs, and you can see that right there we have the answer. Now, one of the things that you see here is that I did not select the option. Let's go back to vector geoprocessing tools buffer to dissolve. Remember last time we dissolved the results, and here what we can see is that there are two items that overlap slightly. To see it a little bit better, I can come over here to symbology and can make this semi-transparent. So you can see the overlap right here. We could do the same thing with the buildings in the reserve. So we could do the same thing and we can see if any buildings are within 10 meters of each other. And that's simple enough. Once again, we just go and select the fact that we want to create buffers, and we will look at the buildings. We will not dissolve the buffer results, and the buffer distance will be 10 meters. So we want to make sure that the buildings are not closer than 10 meters away from each other. And I'm going to create a new building buffer and say OK. Yes. And now when I zoom in here, I see that several of these are very close to each other and in fact running on top of each other. So once again, I double click on the layer, look at symbology, and make this say 50% or 65% semi-transparent, and I can see that here we have several buildings closer than 10 meters to each other. Here we have 3, here we have 2, here we have 2, here we have 2, etc. So that gives us an idea of, for example, if we had guidelines that said that we have to make sure that buildings are no closer than a certain distance from each other, we could do that very quickly and easily. So the last one that we're going to be looking at is let's do the same thing again, and let's look at TUS data. In TUS data, I right mouse click to see the attribute table, and I have a field right here that has the distances that are going to buffer. If it didn't, I can add the field very quickly by clicking on the toggle edit, and then I can just add a new column and then type the name and then enter the numbers for each one. So very simple, very straightforward thing to do. And you can look at the notes to see exactly how that's done. So vector buffer, and I'm going to grab the TUS data, and I'm going to, instead of selecting buffer distance, I'm going to select buffer field, and this is the buffer distance, and this is once again in meters, so that way we actually have the whole thing in meters without to be consistent with everything else that we've done. And then we just need to write the name of the output file. So we save the file and say OK. And yes. I can't see anything. Well, remember that we're zoomed into the layer here, so I right mouse click, zoom to layer extent, and I can now see that some of these have big circles and little circles. And we still had the these ones turned out from before that were all a consistent size, and this is what may be causing some confusion when you see this. So now you can see that this one that had a small distance, it shows us a small distance, and these ones with longer distances, they have a larger protection area around them. So you can then use a field to determine the protection size of the areas and so on. So you can do this very quickly and easily, and those are all the options in buffers. Very easy, very straightforward, and we've seen it with lines and with points, which are the two most common ways of doing buffers.